An Israeli airstrike on Beit Lahia town in the northern Gaza Strip has killed at least 16 Palestinians and injured others. Israeli fighter jets conducted an airstrike that targeted the mourners who gathered to offer condolences for Palestinians killed in the Salatin area in Beit Lahia. Israel unilaterally ended the Gaza ceasefire agreement and resumed its aggression on the Strip on Tuesday, March 18th, carrying out a wave of bloody airstrikes across the Gaza Strip and killing hundreds of Palestinians, including more than 100 children. A foreign national has been killed and at least 5 others were wounded in an Israeli airstrike on the site of a UN headquarters in central Gaza City. The executive director for the UN Office of Project Services, Jorge Moreira da Silva, said the UN compound is located in a deconflicted zone well known by the Israeli forces. Da Silva added that the UN does not yet know what type of artillery was used and is investigating it.
Premises in Gaza. It is understood.
The UN Secretary General has condemned attacks on UN personnel. In a statement, the UN Deputy Spokesperson Farhan Haq said all parties in Israel's attack on Gaza knew where the UN premises were based. Haq said that at least 280 UN staff had been killed in Gaza since October the 7th, 2023.
When 2 UN guest houses in Deir Al-Balah were hit in strikes.
The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees has condemned the killing of a UN staff member in this suspected Israeli strike in the central Gaza Strip. UNRWA Commissioner General Felipe Lazzarini decried the killing of an employee of the UN Office for Project Services in a suspected Israeli airstrike that targeted one of the body's buildings in Deir Al-Balah as another black day for the UN in Gaza. He stressed the need to protect humanitarian personnel at all times and noted that the UN, including UNRWA, continues to pay dearly while conducting its humanitarian duties. Leaders of France and Jordan have called for a halt of hostilities in Gaza and a political solution to the conflict. Jordan's King Abdullah called for the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza to be restored and for aid flows to resume. The French President Emmanuel Macron said that the negotiations between Israel and Hamas over the crisis in Gaza had to be back on the table.
That adds further devastation to an already dire humanitarian situation.
Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has issued a last warning to Gazans, saying they should follow the advice of President Trump and return Israeli detainees and remove Hamas from power. Katz said, what is coming will be more difficult and Gazans will pay the price. He added soon the evacuation of residents from combat zones will begin again. And if Gazans don't return the Israeli detainees and Hamas is not being removed from Gaza, Israel will act with force like hasn't been seen before.
ישראל תפעל בעוצמות שעוד לא הכרתם. תושבי עזה, זאת פניית הזרה האחרונה. הסינואר הראשון הרס את עזה, והסינואר השני יחריב אותה לחלוטין. תקיפת חיל האוויר נגד מקבלי
The UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has voiced his deep concern over Israel's renewed bombardment of the Gaza Strip. Starmer told the House of Commons he is deeply concerned about the resumption of Israeli military action in Gaza. He pledged that the UK would do all it could to ensure the resumption of the ceasefire and to get aid that's desperately needed into the Strip. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has said that more than 170 children were killed during the Israeli occupation's aggression on the Gaza Strip. The office stated in a statement that the total number of slain civilians as a result of these raids reached more than 400, including more than 170 children and 80 women. It noted that rescue teams and paramedics were unable to reach many of the victims due to a lack of equipment, fuel and heavy machinery. The office explained that only 4 field hospitals are fully operational in the area, while 22 hospitals and 6 field hospitals are partially operational. Palestinians in Beit Hanun in the north of Gaza have been forcibly displaced after the Israeli army issued new evacuation orders for several neighborhoods. The Israeli army dropped leaflets in the northern and southern Gaza Strip, ordering residents to evacuate their homes, warning they were in dangerous combat zones. Israel warned the onslaught was just the beginning. More than 1,000 protesters have marched in Barcelona in Spain after Israel ended the ceasefire in Gaza. People shouted slogans calling for a boycott of Israel and denounced global inaction over the resumption of hostilities. The Israeli military said its forces resumed ground operations in the central and southern Gaza Strip as a second day of airstrikes killed at least 48 Palestinians. That's according to local health workers. The renewed ground operations came a day after more than 400 Palestinians were killed in airstrikes in one of the deadliest episodes since the beginning of the conflict, shattering a ceasefire that has largely held since January. Israeli police have dispersed crowds with water cannons as protesters demonstrated against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his government. Thousands of Israeli protesters marched towards Jerusalem, calling for the return of Gaza detainees and the safeguarding of democracy. The decision to resume the war with 59 detainees, around which 24 of whom are believed to be still alive, still held in Gaza, has added fresh momentum to anti-government rallies, with protesters accusing the current administration of continuing the conflict for political reasons.